And yeah, let's jump into session 2. We learned a lot in session 1. We're gonna jump straight into applying what we've learned. And so let's welcome Professor Bennen again.
All right, so this second session is all about application. You're going to basically be in table talk discussions, applying some of the approaches and theories and traits and characteristics and behaviors of effective leaders that we looked at in session 1. What I'm going to introduce to you is a video case that is a real situation at the CEO level of an $8 billion corporation. That corporation is called DaVita. What DaVita does is a healthcare organization that provides kidney dialysis management. They mainly operate kidney dialysis centers across the US and even overseas. Incredibly effective, fast-growing organization. Founded in 1999, currently operate over 2,000 of these centers, serving 160,000 patients. They have a number of core values in their organization. The ones that are especially important in this case are highlighted. Team, accountability, and they want work to be fun. How many of you work at places where your boss says every day to you, I want this to be fun? Yeah, I thought so. All right. Okay, so with that, this is Ken Terry. He's the CEO of DaVita. He's going to set up for us what the situation, and I'll give you the nutshell. The nutshell is he hired somebody who was particularly incompatible with those highlighted values. He didn't know it until after the fact. And this person that he hired is kind of sapping the motivation and the energy from his top-level senior management team. He's realizing that he may have made a hiring mistake. So he has to think about how he is going to intervene. What I'm going to want you to be doing after we see the first video, in your tables, you're going to be designing the intervention as the CEO of what it is he needs to do in this situation. Okay? So with that, if we could click the photo, and we'll go ahead and introduce the case.
Hi, I'm Ken Theory, Chairman and CEO of DaVita. And with a very important area of operation within the company, and recruited a new leader, and he was absolutely brilliant in the job from a strategy and operating point of view. Unfortunately, he was also regarded by the rest of the executive team as manipulative, Machiavellian, transactional, and in our culture, those are all really bad naughties. And so there was an awful lot of antibodies building up in the organization. I had 3 or 4 people over the course of a month or two come to me and say, KT, we got a problem here. Do you know that he's disruptive, that people experience him this way, and he's not following our rules about executive behavior? And at this point, it wasn't all clear to me whether I was going to have to fire him right then or not. If we had terminated him, we would have had a huge gap in that function, and we would have lost a year in a function where we couldn't afford to lose a year. The business consequences were major.
He's got a tough situation on his hands. If he fires this guy, he loses an entire year of progress. This is a publicly traded company, so the financial consequences could be enormous. But on the other hand, his senior management team is getting the motivation kind of sapped out of them, and they're having a really difficult time working with this guy. In fact, they've ganged up against him and kind of brought this situation to his attention. So what we're going to do now, Erwin, I'll need you to help me how much time we have. We could maybe spend, say, 7 to 10 minutes. Is that sufficient? Okay. We'll spend 7 to 10 minutes. And basically what I'd like you to do in your groups is first discuss what leadership traits, characteristics, and behaviors Ken Terry needs to intervene effectively. So we've looked at a number of different of these traits and behaviors in session 1. What I'd like you to do is think about what does he need as raw material to effectively intervene in this situation. Based on that raw material, then I'd like you to design the architecture of how that raw material gets deployed. And I'd like you to come up with a plan of action that relies on those characteristics to intervene in this situation. Got it? So as you're doing it, I'm going to put this up as clarity as to what you're sort of aiming for. You're aiming for how well and effective this intervention is going to measure up, and to what extent is it going to address the needs of his followers. Okay? So with that, here's the task. Go at it. Okay, let's give it about another minute, 90 seconds, and then we're going to hear from tables concerning your plans. Oh, wow. Okay, let's start to wrap it up. Wow, it's like a library in here. Okay. So let's hear from some tables. What did you come up with? We'll cold call if we don't have volunteers. All right, great.
Well, our group came up with the idea that this guy's obviously a narcissistic individual.
Okay.
So, in the end, we feel like he's probably not the best person in the long run.
Okay.
So we made a decision that we're going to fire this guy after 60 or 90 days. Well, we're going to give him some time to kind of turn things around. So we're going to feed into his ego a little bit. We're going to let him know, we need you.
Okay.
We're going to feed into his narcissistic characteristic. We need you.
Okay.
If you can get this done, it's going to make everyone in the company look good. It's going to make you look good. And, after that probationary period, after you find a replacement, then let him go. And you're on your way. In the long run, you can give forward guidance to the shareholders and let them know that, the company's going in a different direction and your stock shouldn't take a big hit.
Okay. So any feedback on that one? You think thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs sideways? Anybody agree? We have a thumbs down over there. We'll hear from your team next, okay? So what you described, that's a viable option, and in fact, that's, I'd say, standard operating procedure in this type of a situation. And many of us, if you've ever had to fire anybody, this is standard operating procedure of how you fire somebody. You give them a probationary period, you give them some goals that you know they're probably not going to be able to achieve, and then you can show that you've fired them for cause. So it's a viable option to consider, but we want to hear a counterpoint from a group here that voted it down.
All right, so the premise of my disagreement is that we would be losing a year of functional performance. That's why I have a problem, because you can't let someone go because you'll lose a year of performance. And so the answer is you got to be Denzel Washington. You got to take them to that graveyard and get them to work together somehow, right? You got to bring out the problems and make them address it up front and let them know your expectations and just try to get them to work together. Because if you can salvage the relationship between the guy who has a problem with everybody else, then it could still work out. And that's kind of what you want. You want the win-win.
Okay. So you want to get them all working towards the same goal. Good. Do we have any feedback on that one? Thumbs up, thumbs down, sideways, thumbs up? Okay. Does your group have anything to add? Do you have some ideas and thoughts you can add?
I think the CEO is in a very interesting situation, but I feel like he needs that assertive communication when speaking with this leader. I feel I want to concur that you have to review all the things that, first of all, he's doing right.
Okay.
He's great strategically and operationally. People respect him. He already has great relationships with the rest of the company, except maybe he's being a little bit of a drag. So I'd also review the things that he can improve on, to look at those as ways of opportunities to grow. And also to ask him, what is your self-assessment of yourself? Obviously, he might have a narcissistic perspective, but I think we also need to make it a discussion so it's more equal, so that there's an opportunity to learn.
Very good. So you've set up a nice balance of consideration and initiating structure or task-oriented behaviors. You've also acknowledged that this person potentially does have some narcissistic tendencies, so you need to raise self-awareness. We didn't get at it here, but another trait that's important in trait theory is emotional intelligence, and the starting point of emotional intelligence is self-awareness. A lot argue that self-awareness is actually the starting point. It's ground zero for entering kind of a leadership mentality. Very good. Let's hear from at least one, maybe two more if we have time. Do we have time for two more? Yep, all right. We're reluctant. At least one more. Let's hear from one more. We got over here. All right, good. And then we'll hear the actual solution.
What table? Is this a table? Table 50. We identified that this person will need assertiveness because he will need to speak directly to this individual. Also, we decided he will need open-mindedness because there are multiple individuals within this situation. So it'd be wise to hear all the perspectives. Also, individual consideration concerning the individual themselves. And the plan, we said he should show that he knows there is a problem, probably in a public setting amongst all those involved, maybe a meeting or something. After that, he should address the problem with the individual himself, which would require re-educating that individual on some of those core values, and also give him a list of expectations like you mentioned earlier. And then after that, after some period of time, re-evaluate with that person according to his performance. And if he didn't meet the expectations, then let him go and hire Erwin.
Okay. Awesome. Oh, you gave it away. This is an IT function. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know if that was true or not. Great. What you've done is a nice synthesis of the standard operating procedure with a more kind of sensitive, individualized consideration and initiating structure approach. I like when you said you need to have an open mind in this situation because you don't have all the data, right? So you've got to be very careful as a CEO of coming in passing judgment without actually getting a complete picture of the story. So with that, why don't we head back to the video and we'll see what actually happened, and then we'll wrap up.
Once I became aware of the sort of depth and breadth of the problem, I moved very quickly. And so he knew that there was an issue. I did tell him that, and we were going to sit down and have an extended conversation. So I had to first manage my own sort of anger and frustration to make sure I went into the session with the right intentionality, which was to be helpful. And that, for me, in this particular case, was no mean feat. So I went in and expressed that we have a situation here. We have a situation basically in which you're adding great business value, and you're subtracting an awful lot of value. You're doing a lot of harm in terms of our culture, our community, our team. And so we need to talk about that. You need to understand how people are experiencing you. I'm here to listen to how you're experiencing them. But this is a very serious situation, and it could be one where at the end we decide this is not a good place for you. So let's get to it. He was stunned at first, literally stunned, then angry for a little bit, and pushed back. And my response was consistently, "Hey, you're fine, and I only know what I've been told. And we're going to talk about how other people experience you. I don't really want to wrestle through specific anecdotes, because my point to you is how people are experiencing you. It's not to try to figure out exactly what did happen in this meeting or that meeting or that meeting, but there's a pattern as to how people are experiencing you. So either we have a pattern on their side that they're misexperiencing you, or we have a pattern with you that's sending signals which are not well received. It's one of those two. We're here to talk about which it is." So he went from the being stunned to being angry to letting his brain go to work and say, "Okay, I get this. This is logical. This is fair. There's nothing I can sort of contest so far." And then in a relatively small number of minutes, not that I would have predicted it, he actually started to become somewhat reflective. I think I had taken away sort of the notion of an attack and a threat, and he started to be more sort of human than he had been in virtually any session with anyone before. We ended up with a very specific set of next steps. Number one, we were going to hire him an executive coach, one who's not a coach with respect to a management toolbox, but one who's more adept at stimulating self-awareness, introspection, and working on that kind of stuff, sort of the root cause of behaviors. And I said, that's a gift, that's an investment the company will make in you, as long as you're willing to experience it with an open mind. Second, I told him that I was going to have to be very public about this, that the next step was I was going to have to talk to the executive group and say that, listen, group, this person has some behavioral issues. Some of you have talked to me about it. I just want to get on the table that I agree they exist. He agrees they exist. And he has committed that he wants to get better at them. So it was very important to me that in situations like this where he's not going to change overnight, and there was an awful lot of negative momentum, that it had to be totally wide open that yes, this was a problem, it was a real problem, he was the primary owner, and he intended to try to get better. But it wasn't going to be easy, it wasn't going to happen overnight, and it was my expectation of them that they now be, to the best of their ability, partners in helping him as long as he demonstrated sincerity. And so the other thing he had to do was go sit with a number of those people and say, I understand this is how you're experiencing me. And he had the option of saying, I sometimes experience you in a negative way. He could go that path if he wanted to. Also, he had to take the path of saying, I apologize for creating a world in which you're having that experience, and I want to work on it. The way it happens in life often, it happened in this case, he decided to go to everyone not telling him bad stuff that he thought they had done to him, but instead he focused on himself and his intent. And in so doing, he got a whole bunch of momentum with folks who suddenly wanted to help him and were impressed by his self-awareness, honesty, how he handled a tough situation.
Not too bad, huh? It's the reason why he's the CEO. So what we saw was a number of those behaviors that we had looked at, right? He's showing an open mind, as you had mentioned, right? Collecting the data, not going in passing judgment, but he also had his mind on standard operating procedure, recognizing that this could end up being somebody that I'm going to have to fire, so we'll need a paper trail there. But really, it was about crafting that transformational vision for him and for the management team that they could work together. Addressing the situation with humility, but also addressing the needs, even at a spiritual level, right? Recognizing that this guy needs to save face as well and doesn't want to be embarrassed in this situation. So the situation worked out well. Not everybody was completely on board in the end, but that executive continues to work in that organization, and over time, more and more of the management team has been working on the same page. That's it for session 2. Thanks a lot for your participation, and give Erwin the hand. This has been awesome, Erwin. Thanks.